Back on the Fiat project here. Hey again, welcome back. Picking up with the Fiat project again. We ran out of daylight the other day while we were working on the fuel pump. Where I left off with it, we had successfully installed the block-off plate for the mechanical fuel pump. Got rid of that, that's out of the system. And we've got our electric fuel pump mounted. And now what we need to do is wiring for the electrical fuel pump. So I am on the hunt for a switched wiring supply underneath the hood that I can use to trigger a relay which will power the electric fuel pump. So I'm going to dig around for that. I did have somebody give me an idea for where to look. Just funny thing, I was on a group on Facebook that focuses on Fiat Spiders. Hello everybody, if you're a part of that group. And I asked a question about where the switched power could be found, some different alternatives. And I think I had 14 different responses, all focusing on the fuel pump and what I was doing wrong rather than answering the actual question that I asked. So just a little shout out to those of you who did not answer the question. Not helpful. It was a simple question, just answer the question. But thank you, all of you who are overthinking the problem of the electric fuel pump in the Fiat. Just to recap for those of you who are following along, I was told a few times by people that, oh, you need to make sure that you install the fuel pump in the back so that if your motor conks out, it's not going to pump too much fuel to the front and cause a fireball. Okay, so just a little basic physics. There's this thing called Boyle's Law that means that basically says that anywhere in a closed system, the pressure is going to be equal in the closed system. So it doesn't matter if the fuel pump is in the back of the car or the front of the car. All those hoses that are pressurized are going to have the exact same pressure, so it doesn't matter. Secondly, just to point out, on Fiat Spiders that come with an electric fuel pump, there is no fail-safe device that turns off the fuel pump if the motor happens to sputter out. A lot of people were saying, oh, you need to make sure that you trigger some fail-safe or a switch, a cutoff switch to be able to cut the fuel off. That way, if the motor conks out, it won't keep pumping fuel and you don't have a fireball. Wonderful, wonderful thought, but again, in factory shape, there is literally nothing in the wiring that would do that, even for the ones that came with a factory fuel pump, which, oddly enough, this has both a mechanical fuel pump in the back and an electric fuel pump in the trunk there, or I should say mechanical fuel pump up front on the block. So there's a pusher, a fuel pump, a helper that gets fuel out of the tank moving forward to the mechanical one up here. And yes, some of you pointed out, well, if there is already an electric fuel pump involved, then you should be testing that fuel pump to find out why it's not pushing enough fuel up to the front. Again, it's a helper pump. It's like 1 PSI. It's not a high pressure modern electric fuel pump that would be supplying enough pressure to prime the carburetor. The other thing also I think maybe taking place with this is because the original 48-year-old mechanical fuel pump died and it actually seized up. When I was trying to test it versus the new one that I got, the old one doesn't move. So I think that was part of the problem, why it started leaking, why the motor wouldn't turn over. It was just blocking the fuel from going through there at all. So realistically, it may run based on that one electric fuel pump that's in the back. But given that I've had some more modern cars, like the Corrado G60 and even some early Corrado VR6s, that had 2 fuel pumps, one in the tank as a pusher to get fuel out of the tank, but not a high pressure thing, and that just moved it forward to the second fuel pump, which actually pressurized the system and supplied the pressure that you need. It is really not that uncommon to have a 2-pump fuel system. So obviously this came with 2 pumps, weirdly enough, and I'm gonna keep the 2 pumps. I'll have the one in the back moving fuel out of the tank, and we'll have this one up front supplying the 2 to 3 PSI pressure that it needs in order to run the carburetor. And guys, gals, thank you so much for your help. You don't need to overthink it. I don't need a fuel cutoff switch. That is literally what the ignition switch would do if it's on a switched power circuit. Turn off the ignition switch, guess what it does? It de-energizes the relay, which cuts power to the fuel pump. No more fuel. So no need to overthink this. Really none. So we're gonna get to this now and find some switched power, get a relay on this, and get this baby up and running. Using a vampire clip here. Now I'm prepping the cable before using the vampire clip, removing just a little bit of the sheath so that when I go down in there and use this thing, let's see here, in close. When I get in there and clamp this thing on there, there's already exposed cable, so it will make a positive contact rather than trying to chomp through the insulation, which it may or may not do without breaking the cable. So we're just prepping it to be able to have a good connection. It's a little crusty, so I'm going to spray some contact cleaner. Just clean that up. And add our new ground into the stack of things that are plugged in here. Make sure they all remain plugged in here. I'm going to leave the ground for last, connect the hot first, go get that, and then we'll connect this and test it. Let's see if we have life. So it's all connected, relays wired, we've got this here. I'll probably secure with this with some zip tie just to make sure that it doesn't rub on anything here. So we've got hot power. We have switched power, which means we should have... Oh, it's a bad relay. Of course it is. All right, so I've got a dead relay. So everything's wired right, but this relay is bunk. Let me see if I have another one.
5 minutes later.
All right, not only do I have another relay, this one is actually a Fiat relay. So let's give this a whirl. Well, it's Fiat, which they make the horns for Fiats and Ferraris and stuff. So let's see if this will change the game. So we want our hot wiring from the battery. That goes to, okay, 12 volt fused from battery feed. That goes to 30. So that is going, where's 30 on here? Here. Okay. And then we've got our ground. I'll do ground last because I'm gonna get this other hot stuff first. So 12 volt from the switch goes to 86. 86 is here. And then we've got our power to the device. So this, all right, that goes to 87. That is here, and then our ground. The ground goes to 85. There. All right, so this hopefully will be a good relay, and let's see if we've got life. Okay. Things clicking as they're supposed to. Let's check it. So we've got hot power. We've got a switch signal. And again, for some reason, we don't have power. Do we not have a good ground? Maybe. Let's check the ground. That would be weird to have two dead relays. So let's double check our ground. Make sure that that's actually grounding. Okay, the ground is good. So we should have power going through here, unless we've got two bad relays, which would just be really weird, but I guess it's possible. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go and buy another relay. It's got two bad relays. How obnoxious. Bummer.
8 minutes later.
Try number 3. I found another relay, so let's swap it out and see if we've got what we need to have here. So let me check and make sure it's actually 12 volts. It might be some lower voltage, and that might be messing us up. And my battery chooses now to die. Fabulous. All right, so we're just gonna do a little quick check here. Looks like we're getting 5 volts from our control signal. That's the issue. I'm not getting enough voltage to actually make this thing crank over. What are we getting from our main power signal? Just double check here. You connect. Thank you. And we've got... All right, so where I pilfered the signal from, that's only a 5 volt supply, not 12 volt. That is our problem. So I wired it to the wrong thing. We're gonna start all over and find a different source of switched power.